Good morning. Oops, shut the video. Morning. Oh man, excuse me. Well, we got some interesting PA that sort of developed over the last couple hours. All you London guys have just been getting really lucky, to be honest. I literally just rolled out of bed, put my gym clothes on, and that's it. So, yeah, there was looks like there might have been a trade in here, potentially, depending on how you had your demand drawn out over here. Anybody grab this? Possibly. Anyways, let's get into the narrative because got some stuff to do this morning. So this is another one of those times where technically, if we can just see the demand that we're reacting to. This is the extreme, right? So if you're looking at this right now, I'm just going to zoom in. I don't see a change of character yet. Now, this is where you can kind of get involved depending on how you sort of view things. But for me personally, I wouldn't be involved yet. And the reason why is because we haven't chalked. In all fairness, the supply range sits here, right? Now, would I have possibly gotten involved a little bit more aggressively, seeing that like we've had this impulsive move away, we've taken liquidity here and then chalked up like this? Yeah, I mean, I probably would have taken the risk, but the bottom line here is that we haven't had an actual, we've had order flow realign within this area, but I'm not fully convinced because we haven't actually taken out a substantial level as of yet, at least in my opinion, because if you look at this, just the way that we've delivered, and I get that this is in Asia, so things are a little bit less voluminous, if that's the correct word. But what I'm really sort of intrigued about here is just looking how beautifully these equal lows have sort of formed right across our POI, right? So personally, I'm probably gonna like, is there a trade here? I mean, and again, this is where this is sort of like a personal decision and like, can you make this work with the flow chart? I mean, yeah, bottom line is we've technically seen a chalk, we've had a flip, and then we had the extreme, right? So there's a possible way to get in. Now, what I'm really interested in here is, like I said, I'm just looking at equal lows technically building above our POI. And if we were to just kind of refine this POI down a little bit and say like, okay, like let's just look at something like this, you can start to see that like we haven't actually tapped into it, right? So could you get involved? Yes. I'm definitely interested to see this sort of like for the higher time frame play, of course, and this is just for like the bigger play that is at hand, and obviously you can see this a little bit better when you sort of zoom out and understand what the hell is going on here, right? So ideally what I would love to see here would be a sweep of this low into the deeper portions of the POI that actually take liquidity right here, and then I would start hammering on this. So you can still look at it, but we haven't really, like, we've seen an internal chalk is what I would kind of classify this as. And again, this is maybe me just getting a little bit fussy and looking at this. I would have definitely gotten involved had I been on the charts on time. And the reason I would have got involved, do you feel like there was enough liquidity built to risk for that buy? Yeah, because now, like if you look at like what's kind of happened here too, is the way that I would have viewed this on sort of getting in and getting involved down in here would have been that, okay, well, ultimately, if we've chalked down like this after touching into supply, the market's going to want to come back up and mitigate this supply zone, right? So the way that I would have looked at this would have been like, okay, well, ultimately we had levels of liquidity to take here and here, which we did, and we swept below. The market's going to want to come to at least this supply zone to mitigate. But if you look, we don't actually have any liquidity to sort of take coming into this POI. So what does that become? Well, this becomes technically a weak high in terms of liquidity concepts. And now we have these perfectly equal highs sort of built across. So this is where I would sort of be looking at it. If we saw some sort of a nice reaction like this, I would be looking for a trade in here potentially to take this up a little bit higher. We have all sorts of liquidity comes in all shapes and forms, right? It comes in the form of imbalance. It comes in the form of equal highs. It comes in the form of equal lows. Comes in the form of weak highs on EOF. You know what I mean? Like, so you have to understand more of just like the nature of what's really happening here. Like, I mean, we've technically broken structure, right, to a certain degree, or a substantial piece of demand. So what is the market going to want to do? Well, if we want to continue downwards, more than likely we're going to want to fill some orders up in these regions, right? Or like I said, look at something like this to then look for potentially coming down to run these lows. So yeah, I think there's a really good chance that because we've essentially taken out a shitload of liquidity down here, now the market's looking to pull back, right? And am I looking to swing from here to be able to take out these highs right now? Probably not. What I would look to swing for the highs on would be if we stopped at somewhere like this, we came down, we liquidated and came back into this sort of extreme area. And then I would be looking to swing a little bit harder based on the fact that now we have more liquidity developed. So right now, as it sits, I would expect that we should see some sort of hold up at the supply range. We're probably going to see a little hold up here. And again, you can just see how long these schematics take to sort of build out, right? So in order to understand whether or not we are actually going to take out the structural high on the 4-hour and the daily, it's going to depend on how delivery sort of sets itself up, right? Because if we see turbulence here, that's a good sign for us. And then how we deliver away from here is going to give it more validity to be able to actually start taking this into a higher swing trade. Does that make sense for everybody? So as it sits right now, yeah, there was more than likely a trade at the beginning of London that would have been really easy to take based on the fact that, you know what, we've swept down into the extremity, right? We've changed character. We've had a flip zone. So somewhere in here, I'm sure there's refined POIs and stuff like that. But ultimately, if we see this and it's sitting here like this, and we've come back across and, like I said, mitigated across like this, we've created equal highs. We don't have a level of liquidity to take into the supply. What's going to happen to this high? And this is where like having like a very realistic expectation of the market is going to pay a lot higher than holding this long term, because more than likely what will happen is we can break through this. We might break through this by 30, 40, 50 pips, but all of a sudden we come back down into here, create equals, sweep down, and then we go into a bigger play, right? So if you've missed this, you know, don't force anything. Wait for 15-minute to basically show you what it wants to do, whether it be you know, sort of create a pullback here, create a new flip zone, whether it be jump up like this, come back down, come up like this. You know, like these are all going to create a little bit different situations depending on where things stop, depending on how deep things go. Like there's all kinds of different ways that we can sort of interpret the data once it starts printing. Was there a viable trade within here? I think that you could have got away with it, to be honest with you. We've already broken through all this liquidity. the market doesn't have anything to grab underneath here, because really we don't have a bunch of equals, right? Like we don't, like, we're creating equals now. But right now it looks like it's a relatively strong low. Is it going to be something that sustains? Well, that's yet to be determined. And like I said, I'm very suspicious of the fact that we still have these equals that could potentially get ran and then be able to go a lot higher, right? Because if we get rid of all of these guys, it's a lot easier to now target all of these guys up here. Cool. So sitting on my hands right now, if you're involved in this, great trade. Technically follows the charts. I would just be very mindful of where you're taking a good bit of your profits off the table. This should run. This should run pretty well because, like I said, we've taken out substantial areas of liquidity, and we're going to enter a pullback phase to come up and probably mitigate a higher range. So again, that's just what I'm looking at. I would, yeah, just take this all with a grain of salt, especially because we do still technically have an unmitigated POI at the bottom. Yeah, do with that with what you will. So have a safe session. Don't force trades just because you see this going away. Let me tell you right now, this thing's not just going to go through the fucking roof. We're going to come up. We're going to mitigate zones. We're going to create more liquidity. So if you miss this, the next trade could potentially come from this region, right? And look for some sort of sells. However, what I would be looking for is order flow to sort of realign on the 15-minute, take this down into newfound demand, whatever it might be. But technically what will happen here is if we end up starting to react to a supply zone, more than likely what that is going to mean is that these lows will temporarily be weak, which should bring us down into creating equals, sweep down, and then we can really, really kind of catapult our way into a higher time frame narrative move. That's my TED Talk for today. See you guys at 12 o'clock. And yeah, have a good session. Catch you guys in a bit. I'll get this uploaded right now.